Okay, here's what unfolded in court. So if you thought the story ended when the judge shut Prince Harry down, think again. Because what followed inside that London courtroom may have been even more revealing. This wasn't just another dry legal hearing. This was a pressure cooker.
The works. He's accusing them of basically ruining his life with illegal tactics.
And at the centre of it all was a prince who appeared to be running out of patience, running out of control, and running out of ways to steer the narrative in his favour. Prince Harry walked into this hearing already under intense scrutiny. The judge had made it clear in earlier proceedings that royal status wouldn't carry any special weight. The court wasn't interested in symbolism, legacy, or titles. It was interested in facts, evidence, and consistency. And as the Daily Mail's legal team began laying out their defence, the tension in the room reportedly became impossible to ignore. According to courtroom observers, Harry appeared visibly agitated as arguments were presented that directly challenged the foundation of his claims. This wasn't just a legal rebuttal, it was a direct challenge to the story Harry has been telling for years. That he was relentlessly targeted, hunted, and victimised by the British press.
He's pinpointed 14 specific articles he believes are the result of this shady behavior. We're talking about
with no meaningful consent or cooperation on his part. For Harry, this case has never been just about law. It's personal, it's emotional, it's tied to his childhood, his mother, his relationship with the media, and his belief that the press played a destructive role in shaping his life. So when lawyers for associated newspapers began arguing that some journalists had legitimate access to him, not illegal surveillance, it reportedly struck a nerve. Observers say Harry's body language changed noticeably. He leaned forward, his jaw tightened, his expressions hardened. This wasn't the calm, composed claimant of earlier hearings. This was someone reacting in real time to a narrative he clearly rejected. The Daily Mail's legal strategy was straightforward. Undermine the idea of total victimhood. Their lawyers pointed to professional relationships, social interactions, and instances where journalists were invited into Harry's orbit. Not hacked, not tricked, invited, and that distinction matters in court.
See, Harry claims that between 2001 and 2013, the Mail...
At the centre of this tension were references to journalists like Rebecca English and Katie Nicholl, figures Harry accuses of benefiting from unlawful information gathering. The defence, however, framed them as professionals who obtained information through accepted journalistic practices and, in some cases, direct access. That framing reportedly infuriated Harry. From his perspective, the issue isn't whether he once spoke to journalists or attended events where reporters were present. It's about what happened afterward. He believes proximity was exploited, trust was abused, and information was weaponised against him and his family. To Harry, consent to speak does not equal consent to intrusion, but courts don't operate on feelings, they operate on evidence, and that's where the clash became explosive. As the hearing continued, sources describe Harry reacting sharply to claims that he had engaged with members of the press during his time as a working royal. The implication that his relationship with the media was more complex than he now portrays appeared to provoke visible frustration.
He said the institution, meaning the palace, wouldn't let him. It was a never complain, never...
At moments, Harry was reportedly seen shifting in his seat, reacting to statements as they were made, and appearing eager to interject. While he did not formally interrupt proceedings, the tension was unmistakable. The contrast between the calm delivery of the defence and Harry's increasingly animated reactions only made the atmosphere more charged. This wasn't just a legal disagreement. This was two competing versions of reality colliding in public view. Harry's version is rooted in harm. He argues that regardless of legality, the press crossed moral and ethical lines. That they created an environment of constant pressure, fear, and invasion. That they profited from his pain. The Daily Mail's version is rooted in law. What can be proven, what crosses legal thresholds, what doesn't. Their argument suggests that while press behaviour may be uncomfortable or aggressive, discomfort does not automatically equal illegality. That gap between moral grievance and legal standard,
making last-minute changes to his witness statement. That tells you how seriously he's taking this.
Is where Harry's frustration appears to peak. According to observers, Harry seemed particularly angered by suggestions that this case reflects selective memory, that while he now condemns media intrusion, there were periods when he actively participated in the media ecosystem, attending events, maintaining relationships, engaging professionally. To Harry, that argument feels like gaslighting. To the court, it introduces doubt. And doubt is deadly in cases like this. As proceedings dragged on, the emotional toll became increasingly visible. Harry appeared tired, strained, at times openly exasperated. This was not the controlled image of a man confidently pursuing justice. This was someone under pressure, struggling to reconcile his lived experience with the rigid structure of legal debate. At one point, sources claim the atmosphere became so tense that even small exchanges felt loaded. A pause, a glance, a shift in tone, everything carried weight. And then there were reports, disputed but widely circulated, that Harry reacted vocally during the hearing, expressing frustration at how the case was unfolding.
Harry shot back, saying they weren't friends, and that Nicholl just called her for stories. He was really aggressive.
While there is no official transcript confirming raised voices or specific statements, multiple observers noted that Harry appeared visibly upset, and that his reactions drew attention within the courtroom. The key issue isn't whether a specific phrase was spoken, it's that the idea of Harry losing his composure feels plausible to many watching this unfold, and that perception alone matters.
Harry accusing the male of actually listening in on a super private phone call he had with William about...
Because public opinion isn't built on transcripts, it's built on impressions. Once, Harry was widely seen as the wounded prince standing up to a powerful media machine. Today, that image is fraying. Not because the press has suddenly become beloved, but because Harry's response increasingly looks reactive rather than strategic. Every visible display of anger risks shifting sympathy away from his cause and toward questions about his judgment. The Daily Mail, for its part, appears to understand this dynamic well. Their lawyers remained measured, restrained, and disciplined. They didn't need to provoke Harry. They simply needed to present their case and let his reactions speak for themselves. It's a classic courtroom imbalance. One side argues law, the other argues emotion, and historically, emotion rarely wins. As the hearing neared its conclusion, it became clear that whatever the legal outcome, the narrative battle was slipping from Harry's control. The story was no longer just about alleged wrongdoing by the press. It was about Harry himself, his reactions, his credibility, his ability to withstand scrutiny. That's a dangerous place to be, because once the focus shifts to the claimant rather than the claims, the case changes shape entirely. Harry wants acknowledgement, he wants accountability, he wants the record to reflect his pain and his version of events. But courtrooms don't exist to validate feelings. They exist to determine liability. And that mismatch may be at the heart of his growing frustration. As this case continues, the pressure on Harry is only going to intensify. Each hearing brings new scrutiny. Each argument opens old wounds. Each moment in the courtroom is watched, analysed, and interpreted far beyond its legal significance. And with every visible crack in composure, the risk grows. Not just the risk of losing a case, but the risk of losing the public. Because anger, once it becomes the dominant image, is hard to undo. Harry entered this legal fight believing he could finally reclaim control over his story. But as tensions rise and emotions spill into public view, that story is becoming harder to manage and easier to question. This hearing wasn't just tense, it was revealing, and if this pattern continues, the greatest damage may not come from any ruling the judge delivers, but from the way this battle is reshaping how Harry himself is seen.